Number one on this list is a town of about 9,000 people, where a bakery quietly changed how the entire country eats breakfast, and where that one invention still pays the bills for a downtown most retirees can afford to live in on a fixed income. Stay with me, because by the end of this list, you'll understand why a Missouri town nobody talks about became the birthplace of a phrase every English speaker uses. But first, we're counting down 11 other towns that prove you don't need a coastal zip code or a six-figure pension to retire well. Small towns with real hospitals, real neighbors, and real homes under $200,000. This is Missouri, quietly outperforming Florida and Arizona on affordability, one overlooked town at a time. Here's what this video actually delivers. 12 towns spread across every region of the state chosen because they don't show up on the glossy best of retirement lists. Before we get into it, if you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe because we cover a different overlooked corner of small-town America every single week. And drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching this from tonight. We genuinely like seeing how far these small Missouri towns end up traveling. These are the towns locals brag about and outsiders drive past. Every fact in this video has been checked against public records and reliable sources. No guessing, no filler statistics. Just the towns, what makes them work for a retiree stretching a modest income, and the one detail in each place worth a second look. Let's start the countdown. Number 12 is Mountain Grove, a city of just over 4,000 people split across Wright and Texas counties in the Ozark Highlands of south-central Missouri. Mountain Grove sits at over 1,400 feet in elevation, which is unusually high for the region, and that elevation gives it cooler summer evenings than most of the Missouri Bootheel. The town's post office has operated continuously since 1875, and its roots go back even further, to an 1841 settlement near a spring called Hickory Spring. During the Civil War, a March 1862 skirmish took place right in town between Union cavalry and Confederate forces, and Union prisoners were held here for a time. Mountain Grove sits in the heart of the Ozarks, with hills and hardwood forest most flatland Bootheel towns simply don't have. Today, that same small footprint means walkable errands, a main street that hasn't been swallowed by big box sprawl, and a cost of living that lets a modest social security check go a long way. It's a town built for people who want quiet mornings and low overhead, not a resort brochure. Worth knowing before you pack, Ozark winters here are real, not the mild kind Bootheel towns get, so budget for a coat and a snow shovel. And if a town with roughly 4,000 people impresses you, wait until you see number 11. Because it's even smaller, and it's sitting on top of Missouri's very first cross-state railroad. Brookfield in Lynn County has a population just over 4,000, and it owes its entire existence to the tracks. The town was surveyed in 1859 by a Boston native named John Wood Brooks, and you can still find his fingerprints on the map. 4 streets in Brookfield are named John, Wood, Brooks, and Boston, all after the same man. Brookfield sat directly on the Hannibal and St. Joseph Railroad, the first railroad ever completed across the entire state of Missouri, finished in February of 1859. For over 100 years, passenger trains rolled through daily until the last daytime train, the Kansas City Zephyr, made its final run in April of 1968. Lynn County as a whole remains a quiet, largely rural stretch of northern Missouri, and Brookfield is its largest city, which means retirees here get to be a genuine local hub without ever feeling crowded. What's left behind is a compact, walkable town with a slower pace and housing well under the state average. Brookfield's history as a transportation hub means the roads in and out are still solid, even if the passenger trains are gone. The trade-off is size. Don't expect big box shopping or a wide restaurant scene here. Most of that means a drive to a larger town nearby. Now, let's head southwest to a town that shares its name with a much more famous desert state, and locals will be quick to correct you on how to say it. Nevada, Missouri, pronounced Nevada, not like the state out west, is the county seat of Vernon County with a population just over 8,000. Long before European settlers arrived, this land belonged to the Osage people, and the nearby Osage Village State Historic Site sits on a hilltop that once held close to 200 lodges and an estimated 2,000 to 3,000 residents between roughly 1700 and 1775, making it one of the most significant Osage settlement sites in the state. Vernon County saw real damage during the Civil War years, and Nevada rebuilt itself afterward into the trading and government center it remains today. Nevada itself grew into a regional hub with a classic town square built around its historic courthouse, and today it offers retirees an 18-hole championship golf course winding through more than 200 acres of native Osage prairie, plus casual city parks with picnic shelters and walking paths. Home values here consistently rank among the most affordable in western Missouri, giving retirees more space and less mortgage stress than almost anywhere within driving distance of Kansas City. Nevada proves that a county seat can still feel unhurried, though summers here run hot and humid like most of western Missouri, so central air isn't a luxury. It's closer to a necessity. Next up, a town that earned its nickname the hard way by sitting at the literal crossing point of railroads heading in every direction. Cameron, Missouri, straddles 3 counties, Clinton, DeKalb, and Caldwell, and carries the nickname Crossroads of the Nation for good reason. The town began in 1854 when a settler named Samuel McCorkle platted the original community, then called Somerville before the arrival of the Hannibal and St. Joseph Railroad transformed it. Cameron's location made it strategically important enough that the construction of the Hannibal Bridge in Kansas City meant to beat out Omaha in the race to cross the Missouri River, directly shaped the town's growth as a rail junction. With a population just over 8,000, Cameron today sits at the overlap of 2 metro areas, part of Kansas City and part of St. Joseph, which means retirees here get small-town property taxes with genuine access to 2 different cities' worth of hospitals, specialists, and shopping without living inside either one. That kind of geographic luck is rare. Cameron's downtown still carries the footprint of its railroad-era boom, with a compact grid built for foot traffic rather than car-dependent sprawl. On the downside, straddling 3 counties means Cameron doesn't fully belong to any single local government's growth plan, so some infrastructure decisions move a little slower than in a single county town. Speaking of overlooked geography, our next town sits inside not 2, but 3 separate counties at once, and it holds one of the biggest names of the 20th century. Fulton, the seat of Callaway County, has a population of roughly 12,600 people, and it holds a piece of world history that most Americans have never connected to Missouri. On March 5, 1946, Winston Churchill stood on the campus of Westminster College here and delivered his famous Iron Curtain speech, with President Harry Truman sitting in the audience. Decades later, an actual bombed-out church from London, St. Mary the Virgin, Aldermanbury, was carefully dismantled stone by stone and rebuilt on that same campus, where it now houses America's National Churchill Museum, complete with a section of the actual Berlin Wall outside. For retirees, Fulton offers something just as practical as it is historic: direct access to the Katy Trail State Park, a 239-mile crushed limestone rail trail that is the longest continuous rail trail in the country. Perfect for low-impact daily walking or biking without ever needing a car. Median home prices here regularly sit well under the state average, and the town's brick downtown district gives retirees somewhere to actually walk to. Fulton also hosts William Woods University alongside Westminster College, giving a town this size an unusually deep bench of lectures and continuing education classes, without the price tag of living in a true college town. One honest caveat: Fulton leans on nearby Jefferson City and Columbia for specialized medical care, so this isn't the town for someone who wants every service inside city limits. Next, we're heading north to a city that quite literally built itself out of nothing but a railroad boom, and earned a nickname that stuck for over a century. Moberly in Randolph County carries the nickname the Magic City because of how fast it grew, and the story behind that growth still shows up in the town's layout today. Moberly was founded in 1866 and named for Colonel William E. Moberly, the first president of the Chariton and Randolph County Railroads. The town was platted by the North Missouri Railroad, later absorbed into the Wabash Railroad, and it exploded from nothing to over 6,000 residents in an astonishingly short window, essentially conjuring an entire transportation hub out of open farmland. Today, Moberly's population sits at roughly 13,800, and it functions as a genuine regional center rather than a sleepy crossroads, with a hospital system, a community college, and railroad-era architecture throughout downtown. It's small enough to avoid big city costs, but established enough to have real infrastructure, not a skeleton crew of services stretched thin. Moberly also anchors the outer edge of the Columbia metro area, putting a genuine research hospital system within easy driving distance. Worth saying plainly, Moberly's downtown still has empty storefronts left over from decades of retail shifting to the highway strip, so don't expect a fully restored postcard Main Street here. If a town built by railroad money impresses you, our next stop is a full-size city seat with a Supreme Court namesake and a college campus that keeps its downtown surprisingly lively for its size. Marshall, the seat of Saline County, sits along the Missouri River corridor with a population of roughly 13,800 people. The land the city sits on was donated in 1839 by a settler named Jeremiah Odell, and the town was named after United States Supreme Court Chief Justice John Marshall when it was chosen as the county seat. Quick reminder, if you're finding this useful, tapping that subscribe button genuinely helps more retirees stumble onto towns like this instead of scrolling right past them. Okay. Back to the countdown. After the first two courthouses in town were lost to fires, the current Saline County Courthouse was finished in January of 1882, and it's been sitting at the center of Marshall Square ever since, earning a spot on the National Register of Historic Places in 1977. Marshall is home to Missouri Valley College, which keeps a surprising amount of youthful energy flowing through a town this size, without pushing housing costs anywhere near what a typical college town commands. For retirees, that means restaurants, events, and continuing education opportunities usually reserved for much larger cities, layered on top of small town property values. It's the kind of balance that's genuinely hard to find. Marshall also has a quietly remarkable aviation history, having once been home to the Nicholas Beasley Airplane Company, an early American aircraft manufacturer, a detail most residents mention with more pride than you'd expect from a town this size. Marshall's honest limitation is the same one a lot of college towns share. Rental prices near campus run a bit higher than the rest of town, so it pays to look a few blocks out if you're renting rather than buying. From a river town built around a Supreme Court justice's name, we're heading south into the Booth Heel, to the largest city in that entire region, a place most people only know from a highway sign. Kennett is the largest city in the Missouri Boot Heel, with a population just over 10,500, and its own name has a strange backstory. The original settlement here was called Chillicothe, honoring a Delaware Indian chief before it was renamed Butler in the late 1840s. Mail delivery kept getting confused because other towns in the state shared that name, so the settlement was renamed once more, this time Kennett, in honor of Luther M. Kennett, a former mayor of St. Louis who never actually lived here. Kennett sits just 4 miles from the Arkansas border and about 20 miles from the Mississippi River, deep in flat, fertile Boot Heel farmland. And the historic Ely and Walker Shirt Factory building still stands on Main Street today. Because it's the Boot Heel's largest hub, Kennett carries genuine infrastructure that smaller Boot Heel towns simply don't have. Multiple pharmacies, grocery chains, and medical offices, all inside a town small enough that a doctor's appointment doesn't eat your entire afternoon. Home prices here remain some of the lowest of any town on this list, which is exactly why so many retirees from pricier parts of the state have quietly been relocating to the Boot Heel in recent years. The flip side of that affordability is geography. The Boot Heel is flat, rural, and a genuine drive from any major city, so this works best for retirees who are fine trading proximity to a metro area for lower bills. Climbing back north for the 5th spot, here's a fish town with a name most people can't pronounce on the first try, and a story that goes back to the Osage themselves. Neosho, the seat of Newton County in the far southwest corner of the state, has a population just over 12,500, and it carries 3 separate nicknames that all point to the same thing: water. Locals call it the City of Springs, the Flower Box City, and the gateway to the Ozarks. The name Neosho itself comes from a Siouan word connected to the region's natural springs. Since 1888, the town has been home to the Neosho National Fish Hatchery, the oldest federal fish hatchery still operating in the entire United States, established after land was purchased from a local family for less than $2,500, using a natural spring that produced 300 gallons of water per minute. Today, that hatchery still raises millions of rainbow trout every year, and it doubles as a recovery site for endangered pallid sturgeon and Ozark cavefish, with a visitor center and walking paths open to the public year-round, completely free. For a retiree, that means a genuinely unique daily walk that most towns simply cannot offer: spring-fed ponds instead of a generic city park loop. Neosho's downtown, framed by flower boxes the town is famous for, keeps that same unhurried, walkable character. One thing to know going in: for major specialists beyond routine and emergency care, residents typically make the short drive into nearby Joplin. Now, we're moving from a town built around living springs to a river town whose entire nickname is a promise about what waits beyond it. Poplar Bluff, the seat of Butler County, carries the nickname Gateway to the Ozarks, and with a population just over 16,200, it's one of the larger towns on this list, but it still flies well under the radar compared to Branson or Springfield. French explorers first asserted territorial claims over this area, and the French held it until 1771, when it was ceded by treaty, giving Poplar Bluff one of the longer documented histories in southeastern Missouri. The restored Rogers Theater still anchors the downtown today, a reminder that this was always meant to be a regional gathering place, not just a pass-through town. The town itself formally started in 1850 and was incorporated in February of 1870. Sitting at the crossroads of U.S. Route 60 and U.S. Route 67, Poplar Bluff functions as the medical and commercial anchor for a wide swath of southeastern Missouri, which matters enormously for retirees because it means a full regional medical center is a short drive away rather than an hour-long trip to another county entirely. The Black River runs right past town, giving retirees easy access to fishing and quiet riverside parks without paying resort town prices for the privilege. This part of Missouri sits inside a corridor prone to severe spring storms, so a weather radio isn't optional here. Heading east now to a crossroads city that's quietly become one of the busiest little hubs in the entire Bootheel region. Sikeston straddles two counties, Scott and New Madrid, with a population just over 16,200. And it sits close enough to the Bootheel that most locals consider it part of the region, even though it's technically just north of the official boundary. The town was founded by a man named John Sykes, who laid it out in 1860 along the Cairo and Fulton Railroad, and that railroad heritage still shapes the town's role today as a transportation crossroads, sitting near Interstate 55, Interstate 57, and U.S. Route 60. As the principal city of its own micropolitan statistical area, Sikeston anchors a wider region of over 41,000 people, giving it a genuine commercial and medical footprint well beyond its own city limits. Sikeston is roughly the halfway point between St. Louis and Memphis, Tennessee, which sounds like a small detail until you realize what it means for a retiree: real interstate access to major hospital systems in two different states without living in either expensive metro area. The town's downtown has held on to its historic character, even as the interstate exits around it kept growing, giving retirees small-town familiarity and big-city convenience just a short drive away. The one downside of all that traffic is noise. Homes right along the bypass hear it more than the quieter streets a few blocks off, so it's worth test driving a neighborhood before committing. That mix of interstate access, rail history, and small-town character earns Sikeston the number 2 spot, setting up perfectly for number 1, a town that gave the entire country one of its most common phrases, without most Americans ever realizing where it came from. Which brings us, finally, to number 1. Chillicothe, the seat of Livingston County, has a population just over 9,000 people, and it holds a title that changed how an entire nation eats breakfast. On July 7, 1928, the Chillicothe Baking Company became the very first bakery in the country to sell bread that was already sliced by machine and wrapped for freshness, using a slicing and wrapping device invented by a jeweler-turned-inventor named Otto Frederick Rovetter. Newspapers at the time called it the greatest forward step in the baking industry since bread was wrapped. And within just a few years, the phrase "the best thing since sliced bread" had worked its way into everyday American speech, a phrase now used by people who have never once heard of the small Missouri town where it actually began. The name Chillicothe itself comes from a Shawnee word meaning big town, a little ironic for a place this size, but the town leaned into its legacy, officially declaring July 7th Sliced Bread Day, with a mural near the historic Livingston County Courthouse commemorating the invention for good. That same courthouse district is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and locals have layered on a second nickname, the Highway City, thanks to the town's position along U.S. Route 36. Beyond the history, Chillicothe offers retirees exactly what this whole list has been building toward: a walkable historic downtown, a hospital system serving the surrounding county, and home prices that remain dramatically below the national average, all wrapped inside a town with genuine, quirky, unforgettable character. It's not just affordable. It's a place with a story nobody else in America can claim, and that's exactly why it earns the top spot. Like most of the towns on this list, it's not without trade-offs. Options for big city entertainment and specialty shopping stay limited. And the closest larger cities, Kansas City and Columbia, are both close to 2 hours away. For a retiree prioritizing a low cost of living and a genuine sense of place over nightlife. That trade-off tends to be an easy one. So there you have it. 12 Missouri towns that prove a comfortable retirement doesn't require a coastal zip code or a bloated budget. Just the willingness to look somewhere nobody else is looking. From a fish hatchery older than most national parks, to a church physically moved from London brick by brick, to the single bakery that gave the English language one of its most common phrases, Missouri's small towns are quietly offering retirees real community, real affordability, and real history, all in the same zip code. None of these towns are trying to be the next Branson or the next Hannibal, and that's exactly the point. They're not selling a postcard version of retirement. They're quietly delivering the real thing, one modest mortgage payment at a time. If one of these towns caught your attention, let us know which one in the comments. And if you're already living in one of them yourself, we'd genuinely love to hear what daily life there is actually like. We'll see you on the next list.